Hello there. Today I'd like to share with you a guilty pleasure in a style of wine I do enjoy indulging in occasionally. So this is a wine called La Chenade. It's from Lalande de Pomerol. It's 2019 vintage and it's made by somebody called Denis Durantou. Why a guilty pleasure? Because it's not particularly a wine of elegance, but a wine with real richness and ripeness, and actually great value for money as well. I hope I'll be able to explain to you. But La Chanade is actually a second wine. It's the second wine of a property called Les Cruzelles, which in Lalande de Pomerol. Lalande de Pomerol is the appellation that borders the fabled Pomerol terroir to the north. Pomerol's not a huge appellation, but a lot of the soil types that you find in Pomerol are also found in Lalande de Pomerol, where there's plentiful clay soils and some of the gravel soils you see in Pomerol as well, in some places in a not dissimilar concentration. Denis Durantou is famous for the fact that during the 80s and 90s he propelled his family's principal chateau, L'Église-Clinet in Pomerol, to a level where its quality was regarded by quite a few commentators to be something that could rival the likes of Lafleur and Petrus within the Pomerol appellation. He owns, well, the family owned both properties. Unfortunately, Denis passed away in 2020. The wines are now made by Noëmie Durantou. But Église-Clinet is literally about a kilometre south of where Les Cruzelles is. So in very close proximity, and a lot of the winemaking style is the same. The plantings in the vineyard are very similar. This is a wine made with 80% of Merlot and 20% of Cabernet Franc, so it would be fairly typical for the sort of plantings you get in Pomerol and Lalande de Pomerol. Winemaking is, the wine has a sort of a 2 to 3 week cuvation, and ages in oak barriques, 30% of which are new, and it's a small production wine. The second wine tends to be produced from younger vines, and those vines on the more sandy gravel soils that they have. They do also evidently buy in some fruit to add to this as well, because it's not a huge estate. They make about 3,000 cases of wine a year, so there's not a lot of this wine made. But I think in terms of value for money, you've got a wine that is made along the same sort of lines as Église-Clinet by someone who was a very skillful winemaker, and yet at 1/10 of the price. So this is a wine you can afford to drink relatively regularly, and enjoy without breaking the bank particularly. For pricing for any of these videos, do look in the notes below, and there's a link to our website that will show you pricing and availability for these wines. But I think this is it's not a refined wine. It's not a particularly sort of elegant and delicate wine, but it's a wine that delivers in terms of quality and ripeness. So sorry, I'm talking about it. Let's have a quick taste. First thing we've got is a really lovely deep dark colour. That's an almost sort of black ruby note there. Loses very little colour to the red rim. It's not purple or bright like that. Looking down through it, that wine is practically opaque. So there's a good density to it. In fact, as I swirl it, it almost seems to be slightly staining the glass there. Let's have a look at the aromas then. Yes, the aromas, as expected, are rich, they're ripe. There's an intense, deep, dark, brooding fruit there. The notes are of sort of plum, black plum. It's not over to an overripe prune or that sort of thing, but it's almost a sort of a fruit cakey sort of mix there, sort of a Christmas cake, that sort of a richness, almost slightly spirity, high-toned notes there. There are touches of black cherry about it. but also, if you look very carefully, there are some sort of exotic spice notes, sort of cedar notes, notes of cinnamon, and that's all related to the oak, which is really nicely integrated there. It doesn't stand out, but it's certainly adding elements to the aromas. And behind everything, there's a sort of a chocolatey element as well. So let's have a taste. That's a rich wine, it's mouth-filling. There's a certain suppleness to the tannins, although they're fine, they're grainy, and they're adding some slightly bitter grip, but they're not astringent. There's enough fruit ripeness. There's 14% alcohol in there, so this is it's giving me sort of a big, juicy, black to red fruit note there. So you're thinking of things like sort of high ripeness cherries when they're at that sort of stage of being from dark red to black, black plum, dark red to black, almost sort of damson bullis type notes, loganberry, mulberry notes, boysenberry, all of those sort of aspects in there. There's that little bit of, I suppose it's almost a sort of an anise-like licoricey richness, but also some of that is, there's a sort of a warm, rich, clean, cedary oak undertone there. It's integrated with the fruit completely. It doesn't stand out whatsoever. The finish has a sort of a chocolatey richness. There's a velvety texture, chocolatey to velvety textures and in chocolate flavours to the finish there. There's enough acidity and the touch of bitter tannins just to keep the finish quite fresh. So there's a little red fruit at the finish there, just sort of overlaying the chocolatey notes. I think that's a wine that really delivers in terms of just hedonistic pleasure. It may not be the most delicate, elegant or sophisticated wine going, but for a good, straightforward, honest, supple, ripe, approachable claret from a ripe vintage. I mean, 2019 is exceptional from that point of view. I think that's offering some great drinking at what I think should be a very reasonable price. So yes, thank you very much for watching. That was La Chenade from Denis Durantou. I would heartily suggest trying his wines if you get the opportunity. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you find it interesting. Do please feel free to follow us on YouTube. Do like and share the video, but most importantly, I hope you'll join us again soon. Bye now.